punk was the first time in a counterculture group where women were equal to men.
But in 1976, if you'd wanted to start a band, who would have been your female icons?
Do you know the way to San Jose? I've been away so long. I make her wrong to lose my way. I am not in love, but I'm open to persuasion. Trees, they grow high, and the leaves, they do grow green.
When I started, I can't say I took much inspiration from Joan Baez, more like Debbie Harry. Siouxsie, Patti Smith, Styrene and Chrissie Hyde, all of them women who broke through the glass ceiling of a male-dominated music industry. The DIY ethic of punk gave everyone the opportunity to make a record, write a review or design clothes, and it didn't matter where you came from, what you looked like or what sex you were. I was too young to enjoy the early days of punk, but I can remember the tail end when the artists were now big enough to appear on Top of the Pops. I'm ashamed to admit that at the tender age of 9 I was pretty heartbroken to see Summer Lovin' knocked off the #1 spot by the Boomtown Rats. But I do remember the first time I set eyes on an angel, Debbie Harry singing Sunday Girl.
Cold as ice cream, still as sweet. Dry your eyes, Sunday girl. The thing that was really frustrating in the 70s was trying to play an instrument in a band. And I remember going to jam sessions and being told, "Oh, you can't play your girl." You know, and that really hurt.
The thing about Debbie Harry was that she appealed to everybody. Even though she was blonde and gorgeous, no one seemed to think she was a bimbo. She was more like the leader of the gang, or even, as my brother used to say, like someone's young, sexy mum. It's hard to imagine nowadays, after the PC revolution, that a woman in pop could have an image as sexy as that and still be taken seriously.
I've never taken anything off. I've only ripped up outer garments in an effort to articulate a song, you know, and rip it to shreds and like that, you know. It's just little movements. It's all campy gestures. I've never done any porn or rock at all. Hey, I saw a guy with a different girl. Looks like he's in another world. Run and hide, Sunday girl.
Debbie Harry had come out of the New York scene from CBGB's, the club that helped the careers of the New York Dolls, Television, Talking Heads, and Patti Smith.
Suddenly, Johnny.
Patti Smith was perhaps truer to the American punk ethic. Like Debbie Harry or Chrissie Hyde, she wasn't hiding behind loads of makeup or a strange stage name.
I was raised poor, we never had nothing. So I've had nothing, and having nothing doesn't bother me. I know how to hustle myself. I know how to always get the next meal, get a place over my head. Any good woman does, you know. If I make a lot of money, the only time I'm ever going to be concerned with it is I'm making so much dough that I can buy like 15 pairs of my favorite sunglasses. I say I want 15 of them. Like Elvis Presley. I just sit around smoking French cigarettes and dark glasses and a mink coat. I mean, the only time like I have to like really face my gender is like the fact that I can't sing as strong as... Actually, it's not just gender, it's just probably me. I'm sure Tina Turner has a really fantastically powerful voice. I don't, you know, I'm proud of what I can do, but I don't have that. I don't have wing lungs, you know. I've always been like physically fragile. I guess it has nothing to do with being a girl. It just has to do with that I was a sickly child. It's great, you know, I have a female manager. It never occurred to me that she was a girl.
I like Patti Smith's singing. I didn't quite get the poetry and the music, although I saw her recently, just a few weeks ago, and I thought she was just fantastic. And I saw her in the early days. But I didn't quite get it because it seemed posed to me. And authenticity was always the thing that I thought was vital in rock music.
Chrissie Hyde, who left the States for Britain in 1973, where she hoped to start a band, but it took a while. She worked for Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood in their shop, but was fired. She got a job at the NME, but got fed up with it. Then, still pursuing her mission to start a band, she travelled to France, back to America, and finally, at the request of Malcolm McLaren, back to the UK in 1976.
Got this in pocket. Gunpowder, I'm gonna use it. Intention of feeling myself, gonna make you notice.
I didn't fit in with the punk scene here because I was American, and I'd been listening to Bobby Womack and James Brown, and I had, you know, maybe I was a couple years older than everyone else who had just grown up on Mott the Hoople and Roxy Music and David Bowie. And I already knew 4 chords, so that also was a sort of stumbling block. I certainly had a go, and I tried to make a band with just about everyone in town, it seems. I lived in a squat, and you met the Sex Pistols and Sid and that mob, the Slits. And then I wasn't interested at all in the American groups, what you'd call the CBGB crowd or anything. I had no interest. I wasn't there. I didn't know from that. I was only interested in the little scene here that I was involved in. Tried to get in a band with Mick Jones pre-Clash, but I waited until I met a couple of guys from Hereford, and they were like me in that they weren't from London, they weren't in the scene, they were like just yabos from the sticks, and I also was sort of displaced, and that's when the Pretenders were born. But my friends were dismayed that the first record I put out was a cover song of an old Kinks song. I mean, that was a total uncool. You wouldn't do that. And especially as I had this, you know, a whole cachet of my own songs that I'd written. And my friends knew that. They couldn't work it out. But I felt that, you know, this old Kinks song would be a better single. I had singles in mind the whole time. And I loved the radio. I grew up on the radio. That's what I wanted, just to make 3-minute pop songs for radio.
The Slits never had any female role models to look back on and draw from, really. I mean, okay, there were men who made beautiful music, but we wanted female music to draw back on as well. They were singers, but not really bands. And I remember seeing Chrissie Hyde play guitar in a little back room somewhere. She was jamming with Steve Jones from the Pistols, and she wasn't in a band. She had only just arrived or something. And I'd never seen a girl hold guitar with such ease. It looked right on her. Before then, in Fanny or the Runaways, it never looked right, but on Chrissie Hyde, for the first time, I saw a guitar hang on a girl and just look great.
Viv Albertine of the Slits. Little known fact of punk part 1, Chrissie Hyde almost became a member of the Damned, and little known facts of punk part 2, she almost married Johnny Rotten, but he was unavailable, so Sid Vicious offered to take his place.
Romance wasn't really on the agenda in those days. Not that I saw any evidence of anyway. I had Sid down at the registry office, but he had some legal problems, and it was closed that day, so I had to sort myself out some other way. And Rotten had agreed to do it. You know, there was such an irreverence about the institution of marriage, about anything in the establishment at all, that, you know, it was very flippantly discussed. You know, I've got to stay in the country. Will you help me out? Yeah, if you give me £2.
Meanwhile, in Bromley, Kent, Susan Dallion was about to transform into one of the biggest punk heroines of them all. Siouxsie Sioux was commuting regularly to London's The 100 Club as part of the Bromley contingent to see her favourite band, the Sex Pistols.
One of those nights was, you know, Malcolm McLaren, oh, you know, we need another band for this festival I'm doing. And I just blurt out, I've got a band, you know, completely bullshitting and lying, you know, just said, I'll do it. And I think this was like a week before it was supposed to be happening. Sid was there, so I'll play drums, you know, he volunteered, you know, it was like volunteering to do something like pull your pants down in public. Steve said he'd play bass. Billy Idol was there, and he kind of said he'd play guitar, but he kind of chickened out at the last minute. And Marco Peroni ended up playing guitar. So that's how the band, and that's how, I don't know, people call it the Bromley contingent, and there's been so much written about it that's kind of made it into more than it was, but also missed out on the kind of much more low-key feel that, you know, it wasn't about hanging out with the latest pop stars or something. It was such a minority, people that had nowhere to go, you know. There was this mixture of sheer horror when we played, probably from the A&R men, you know, like glasses steaming up and jaws dropping to the floor. So I was like having orgasms thinking, oh, people's guts are going to fall out, because I'd heard that, you know, with certain frequencies and loudness you can cause people to be sick and break glass, you know, and I was hoping that would be my debut, was to make as many people ill and as much glass broken. I thought, what a fantastic futuristic thing. That wasn't what happened.
Susie's look was shocking. White pan makeup, thick black eyeliner, and loads of thick, dark, wild hair. Think Edward Scissorhands meets Marlene Dietrich.
I was still commuting from the suburbs, so part of it was pissing off the neighbours, I would say, and you know, making those net curtains shake. You know, every time I walked out, you could imagine, you know, never guess what she's wearing today. So part of that was me just sticking the finger up to that kind of suburban mentality. I don't know, I suppose in hindsight, I didn't know it at the time. I felt very fierce, but it was a kind of defensive thing as well, of like, you know, don't get too close, of not looking approachable. That was partly survival, because it was borderline between people being outraged and, you know, just wanting to pick a fight with you or something, and borderline between them wondering, she looks a bit scary.
The look was so radical for women at the time that it couldn't go unnoticed by other women performers. Whether they loved it or hated it, it certainly made an impression. Viv Albertine of The Slits.
Susie of the Banshees, not only did she have fantastic body, but she was very brave. I mean, I remember the first time I saw her coming into Screen on the Green, a Sex Pistols gig, and she had a see-through black top on showing her boobs, and it was a very brave thing to do, but she carried it off so brilliantly. She had a lot of attitude, and she was very ingenious, and she was very creative, and I thought she was brilliant.
Styrene didn't agree.
Well, I thought she was quite cold as a performer, but she was strong, and I didn't dislike her, but I wasn't overwhelmed either. But in retrospect, I think she was quite a strong performer. I didn't like it when she wore t-shirts with boobs on and things like that. I thought it was a bit sort of tarty, but in retrospect, I don't think that about her now.
Toyah.
She had incredible presence, incredible charisma, extraordinary beauty, and great taste.
Chrissie Hyde.
Yeah, she had a real presence. Musically, it wasn't, I can't say it was never off my turntable, but I just loved the attitude and the look, and I loved her. And everyone in town always, you know, wherever you went for years in London, you always saw Banshees written on the back of of jackets. Never once have I ever seen the word Pretenders written on a jacket, a T-shirt, or on a wall, anywhere. And I always really took it very personally and took it hard. But, I didn't mind because, I was getting chart success. So, you can't have everything.
Now she's in purple, now she's a turtle. Disintegrating Chrissie. 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 The strawberry girl's Chrissie. The non-stick lady.
Though Chrissie's image was more downbeat than Siouxsie's, it was just as influential in its own way.
I wasn't very conscious of an image. I think I made a bit of a mistake there because we walked off the street straight onto the stage. And then when we started getting popular, if I walked back on the street again, I would be recognized. So I didn't like that. I never had a persona for the stage. We really just got on stage as we were. And I didn't like the attention on the street. I don't like being recognized. So that presented a problem. I went out and bought a Burberry Mac, and tried to cover up.
What changed your mood? We got all sad. I feel sad too. I think I know some things never outgrow. You think it's wrong? I can tell you do. How can I explain? You don't want me to.
And I read something that Justine from Elastica said, which I really related to, in fact, that she cut her hair short because she used to be bothered on the underground. She didn't want the unwelcome attention of men when she had to, go about her business on the street. And that's really, if I ever had a look, which I can't say this is a look. I mean, it hasn't really evolved or gone anywhere. It was just a way of not being hassled when I was in the underground.
I sometimes feel that a lot of my female friends are following that same urban survival code. Long hair attracts attention, and in the city it's somehow safer to be anonymous. Like Chrissie, I haven't much liked losing my right to being anonymous in the streets. I grew up thinking that fame somehow makes you safe, takes you into the other side, but now I'm not so sure. Sometimes I wish I had a silly name like Palmolive or Polystyrene, or that I could hide behind a makeup mask the way that Siouxsie did. Polystyrene of X-ray specs wanted to be one of the lads.
Well, I felt I took a bit of a boyish stance myself, and I particularly had my long hair cut quite short, and I didn't wear makeup, and I wear quite boyish clothes. And I felt that I had to be like one of the lads to kind of be accepted, and at least to be respected as a writer. So I purposely tried to not look too glam. People just thought, well, if she's not pretty, then she must be intelligent.
All of us questioned what we said, what we thought, what was in our record collections, what colour we wore. I tell you, it was very strict. It was a very strict time, very judgmental time. You couldn't never get DMs for girls in the 70s. I mean, you just wore skinheads DMs, and which are the best ones anyway, but there was no feeling of those heavy clothes and heavy boots being for girls, except for Levi's. You couldn't get leather jeans except in Vivienne Westwood's shop. You couldn't get rubber clothes except in proper fetish shops, which we had to go to, little locked up fetish shops in South London, proper ones, and buy studded belts and things. You couldn't buy them all down King's Road and Carnaby Street like you now. Everything was new. Nobody had seen it on the streets before, and it was very, very shocking as well.
Viv Albertine of the Slits, one of the true punk bands. Their music and their look seemed raw and spontaneous.
We used to try and subvert what was thought of as sort of female ways of dressing and being in many different ways. And we used to wear, a tutu crossed with Dr. Martens, a leather jacket with a bra underneath, very thick black eye makeup. I mean, now it's been parodied and you just see punks on King's Road looking like sort of tourist attractions, but I tell you, in 75, 76, no one has seen anything like it. I walk down the road and I think, I know I'm not the most beautiful girl, but I sure do not look like anybody else. I mean, you know, you really did not look like anybody else. You can't do that anymore. Nothing you could look like now would stand out like we used to in those days. We used to walk down the road 4 abreast and look absolutely wild and feel very strong. We felt very strong, and we'd wear a mixture of fetish wear, very masculine clothes crossed with rubber tights or fetish stilettos and bondage gear, and it just freaked men out. They didn't know whether you were teasing them or giving them a come on, or if a man turned and looked at you, you just practically spit in his face. It was so confusing for men, especially older men. Very confusing. They didn't know what to do, and they'd end up calling you a whore probably or something because they just didn't understand it.
Not surprisingly, this huge army of strident women scared the shit out of people, including other women. Anne Nightingale was one of them.
Siouxsie of the Banshees, I was actually scared of her. She really did look intimidating, which I guess is hard. She's actually brilliant, and I think I've admitted it to her later on, and she's a very nice, approachable person. But perhaps it was to do with that very thick black, very heavy makeup, which was almost like a mask.
Being a girl, I wanted to scare people rather than be considered sexually provocative. It was always blondes with, sort of pale lips, suntan, and very curvy, whereas, I was, very pale and I had very dark hair. It was almost like a negative of what the popular idea of what was attractive, really.
Toyah, people used to be frightened of me, and I would walk down Oxford Street in my paragear and pink hair, shaved head, and I'd get spat at by Iranian women, and people thought I'd be violent. And I think, ironically, punks weren't violent.
I'm on another planet with you. You get under my skin, I don't find it irritating. You always play to win, but I won't need rehabilitating. No, I think I'm on another world with you.
It was intimidating to get up on a stage in those days as a woman, but it was also provocative. And I was very young and wanted attention, and I suppose psychologically I'd always been a fat child and I'd never had a boyfriend. So when I started, I was slightly dumpy, and it did dawn on me quite quickly I'd get more people in the audience if I lost weight. But the worst thing about those days was we were touring up north in working men's clubs, and it was rough. It was really rough. And the general comment was, get your tits out. They really didn't care how you sounded, and I used to act on that. I had no qualms whatsoever. I flashed boobs all over the country, and I had to kind of realise I didn't have to do that to get the attention I wanted. It took a long time to learn that, but on the other hand, I didn't really care.
Siouxsie.
I think there was a lot of people testing the fact that women were on a stage and willing to provoke a reaction, and they certainly got that from the women that were around then, and certainly the slits as well would have, if they'd had any kind of heckling, they probably jumped off and beaten the shit out of the person, and probably did. And I certainly have jumped out off the stage and chased people.
We were very protective of each other. If anyone ever grabbed Ari from the audience, we'd all stop playing immediately and hack them with our guitars and things. We were very aggressive. We weren't scared of them, and we wouldn't let anything happen to anyone else. No matter how much we argued amongst each other, we were very protective of each other.
The thing that I was sure was never going to happen to me was never was anyone going to gob on me. I knew that. and you didn't spit at people. Not the way I grew up, you didn't spit at someone, and no one was ever going to spit at me. I know how it started. Rat Scabies used to go see the Sex Pistols, and he used to gob at Steve Jones. And Steve Jones, who was powerless to do anything about it because he was playing guitar, would gob back. Everyone followed. Most people are natural-born followers. They all put safety pins in their jacket because John had. And, then they all started gobbing at each other. It sort of unleashed a monster.
The worst thing was the showers of gob that would be raining over you all through a gig. I mean, either you walk off and don't ever play a gig, or you play through it and there's nothing else you could do, and it would be shining lumps of spit, and the further up north you got, the more bronchitic it got and heavier, and Ari would open her mouth to sing and gob would go in it and in her eyes. And I say to people, which other girls have spent ages 16 to 22 being spat at by men night after night? Not many girls have had that experience.
I've never been gobbed at a gig, but for some reason I've always thought that beer throwing is a kind of backhanded compliment, but don't get any ideas. It's hard to describe what the Slits were like on stage if you've not seen them, but this will give you an idea.
Ari was the most unself-conscious girl I've ever met in my life. I don't know where it came from in her, but she was just so free about how she looked, what she wore, what she said. I've never met anybody like it before or since, and she was very, very free about her body. And once we were on stage in Camden at the Music Machine, and she was dying for a piss, and we were halfway through a set, and she just pulled her knickers down and did it in front of the whole audience. We were pretty shocked. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was still really shy about all my bodily functions, but Ari didn't give a damn.
I thought the Slits were fantastic. I went and saw them, and again, every time I saw them, like the Sex Pistols, something insane always happened. And it just knocked my socks off. I loved them. And I was good friends with them. Viv Albertine was a good friend of mine. I encouraged her. She came to me one day and said, look, this band has asked me to join, but they're all girls. And I said, well, they're fantastic. Who cares if they're all girls?
The first gig we ever did was supporting The Clash at Edinburgh Playhouse. There were thousands of people there. I remember I had silver rubber stockings on, which just ripped right across the front. I don't know, and there was a big flapping gash there. And I had to sort of bind them up with black gaffer tape. We just ran out onto the stage, really hyped up, and went 1, 2, 3, 4, and just played all our songs from beginning to end without listening to each other, all playing at different speeds, until we got to the end of the set, which was about 5 or 6 numbers, and then that was the end, and off we went. And it was just, I can't remember anything from beginning to end. It was just absolutely terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. It sounds really strange, but we knew we were doing something different. There'd been no other girl band who had done their own thing and not been a puppet of a male manager or just been a girl front singer with a band, which there had been obviously all through the years. And so we thought very deeply as well about what kind of music we wanted to make. We could have just started doing 12-bar blues and variations of and thumping away like all the male bands.
Another band that's often forgotten is X-Ray Specs, led by Marie Elliott, aka Styrene.
I know you're antiseptic, your deodorant smells nice. I'd like to get to know you, your dick frozen like the ice. He's a germ-free adolescent, cleanliness is her obsession. Cleans her teeth 10 times a day, scrub away, scrub away, scrub away the SR1.
I was in Hastings on my 18th birthday, and there was a tacky sign up saying Sex Pistols on a piece of sort of scrummy Dayglow paper, the type of thing that they put up in delis to advertise fruit. And I just thought it was intriguing. So I don't know what it was, whether it was water pistols or what. Anyway, it turned out to be a band. And I went in there and I saw the very, very early Sex Pistols with Glenn Matlock before Sid was in it. They weren't that brilliant. They were doing a lot of cover versions, but they had some magic. They weren't quite there with all the songs that they're famous for. And I liked it. And the main thing I liked about them was that they were they're a bit older than me, but they were kind of in my age group. And it kind of made a change from the bands that were a lot older than me, like Zeppelin, Floyd. And I thought, oh wow, there's some people doing music, and I want to do music as well, and they're in my age group. Well, I just put an advert in Melody Maker for young punks who want to stick it together, and lots of people came. We went through lots of different changes and lots of different rehearsals. There's so many people that probably say that they were in extra respects, but it took some time for me to actually find a band and that I wanted to work with, and even then we were changing people all the time, but that's how we formed, really. And the Pistols were doing quite a few cover versions, so I just thought I want to write about consumerism and plastic, because I was quite influenced by Andy Warhol and sort of all these Heinz baked bean adverts, and I thought, why don't you make this tack into something fun? It's like an art form. So I started writing about just consumerism and just tacky things.
Warrior woman, humble he may seem, behind his cover innocence he clocked and he schemed. He's a rebel on the underground, she's a rebel of the modern town. He's a rebel on the underground, she's a rebel of the modern town. Warrior, warrior, worry, worry.
It might have been hard, but it did make a difference in the long run to women's aspirations. During the punk era, women broke through not just in music, but in design, in photography, and in journalism. Julie Burchill made a name for herself at the NME, while Caroline Coons worked at their great rival, the Melody Maker.
Punk women changed the public face of female. One of the most dramatic moments was being on the road with the Slits. And if you think the Sex Pistols caused a rumpus, that ain't nothing to the rumpus caused by the Slits walking down the streets. Johnny Rotten might have been spat at on stage, but the Slits were spat at on the street. We would walk down the street with the Slits, and swaths of people would just point the finger and say, ugh! It was women using their body as a site of revolt. Just look at the list of the names that some of the women bands were coming up with, calling themselves the Slits, for instance, Snatch, the Bloods, PMT, IUDs, Penetration, the Castrators, Sisterhood of Spit. Seeing the women bands, it created great shockwaves. It was very empowering for universal women. I mean, the story of punk almost could be a woman's liberation story through the designers like Vivienne Westwood, the photographers like Jill Feminowski, Sheila Rock, and the writers like Mary Herron, myself. Punk was the first time in a counterculture group where women were equal to men.